Should be this guy. All right, cool. I didn't screw that up. So, what's up, everyone? Now that we're properly started. So, I wanted to do this video because my last video, I believe the last video I uploaded was about undervolting Radeon cards. It was specific. I specifically used my RX 6600. But it will work for any Radeon cards. Same basic process, just the numbers will be different, basically. So what I'm trying to do here is just explain how to do overclocking and undervolting, and kind of demystify it. This is something that a lot of people really don't want to touch, or maybe they do want to get into it, but it seems really daunting, and you get kind of afraid that you're going to screw something up. So I don't want people to have to have that fear. And I just want to kind of demystify this for a lot of people and hopefully give you a good explanation of kind of what's going on in real time. So I thought that doing a live stream would be pretty cool. Just a quick note. I fully expect that the like display driver is going to crash over the course of this stream. I believe what will just happen over that is the screen will just go green. It should just be for a few seconds, but you should still be able to hear my voice. But when that happens, just know that I'm not in the stream. It shouldn't be a bug or anything. It should just, you should get video again in just a minute. Let me go ahead over here. I think, so, and just full transparency, I do believe I actually still have yeah, I have an undervolt setting on here, but I want to walk through this live and just show you exactly where I would be if I was doing this for myself. So, and then another thing I want to draw some attention to is I actually wanted to start undervolting a little bit more. I had kind of this small overclock, slight undervolt kind of situation that I was doing before, so that I could just basically use a little bit less power and get about the same performance, a slight boost in performance. But I recently became interested in doing some more kind of intense undervolting in order to prevent a lot of heat from building up. The appeal with that is, like, I'm in an enclosed office now, which is not like my old situation was. But in an enclosed office, if you have the door closed and everything, if it's hot outside, you will notice that you'll get a lot of extra heat in your room. That might be nice in the winter, but when it's hot here, I'm on the East Coast, it's hot and humid and everything. It's not a lot of fun. So I'm really doing this as a comfort thing, funny enough. And then a nice benefit is that I will be reducing my temps on my graphics card, which will be good. And my main goal with this undervolt is to maintain about the same performance and just have less heat, basically. Use less voltage. So I'm going to start off just like I did before here. We're just going to go ahead and open all these panels up and get into it here. So, oh yeah, I forgot this is advanced control. The setting, I'm going to leave my VRAM all the way at 1900. This is, I've tested this, so I know that this works just fine. If you were going through this in real time, I think the default is, yeah, 1740 is what it'll want to do at a default. What I might do, a lot of people on 6600 specifically, a lot of people don't have issues cranking this all the way up. So it's not really out of the question to maybe bring this up to 1850 and see if you're running smoothly. Since this is kind of a known quantity for me, I'm just not going to bother with that all that much. I forgot that some of these are sort of stupid. Like, what's 100 and you bring this up to, that's just silly. So, okay, so I think this is about the default tune here. So this is at 2641, and I'm going to bring this up to 2541. Even though I'm undervolting, I do want to still maintain that like 100 megahertz difference between the min and max, because that's just gonna give you some more consistency. I did have a question. Somebody asked a question over comments about fan tuning. They were saying, you know, why is my fan spinning super fast after it did undervolting? You know, it looks like my temperatures are okay and everything, but like why is my fan like going nuts? And going crazy and everything. The reason for that is that when you go into, let me just go back here. So if I go into manual tuning, once you enable all this stuff, so once you go in here and enable this, this is going to increase your fan speed. It's going to set it to 84, for your max fan speed. On my card, this will be kind of BIOS specific to your specific card that you have. But generally, it's going to increase that fan speed. And by doing that, it's going to create a lot more noise. I did call some attention to this in the video, but I guess it wasn't quite clear enough. But yeah, this is basically just going to really drive those numbers up. I strongly recommend disabling 0 RPM if you have that as a feature, because that just kind of cooks your graphics card, especially when you're not really doing anything. I think it's a really silly feature. A lot of gamers don't really care that much about the noise of a fan. So having it be a little bit quieter when you're not doing intense tasks is like kind of nice, but it does actually hurt the longevity of your card. And an added, or I guess a bonus is that if you're just doing kind of light tasks, then your card's already really hot. So then when you go to launch a game, then the fans really have to kick up and try and control that temperature. So yeah, that's that. But just a question that I had. So I'm going to go back here. I'm just going to start off with increasing the VRAM to max, and I'm pretty sure that I'm going to set my power tuning up to 20%. It's probably going to be fine. I'm trying to draw just less power and generate less heat. This doesn't necessarily cause the card to pull more heat. You can see it hasn't budged. It's actually gone down a little bit, which is, it just doesn't draw more energy unless it needs to. So in kind of intense tasks, it will be able to draw more heat. It's kind of the best way to put it. It allows the card to operate at max frequency, the max frequency that you set for, more easily, basically. So we're back in here. This is 2564. I guess this is the stock setting. Let's see here if I go there and go back. Yeah. So 2564. So I'm going to put this to 2464. My goal, if you're really trying to do some intense undervolting, you can, of course, decrease your frequency clocks. That is going to allow your card to use less voltage, and it will be, it'll have less heat and everything. But obviously the downside is that if you're reducing your frequency, then you are going to have worse performance overall. So I don't mind losing a little bit of performance in this scenario, but I really don't want to lose much. I mean, if we're talking, sub 5 FPS, I don't really care. You can't really see that. But I don't really want to be, kneecapping my performance unnecessarily. So I wouldn't bother with that. Talking about actual fan tuning, I mentioned that this is something that I really like to do. I like to just have it be as quiet as it can be whenever possible. If you have an XFX a 6600, the Swift model, then you can just sit. Oh, does that want to do it for some reason? Oh yeah, hold on a second. I think I know what we're doing here. So I think if I turn off advanced control, you can set this to 60 here, and then we can do advanced control, and then that should. Oh no, really interesting. Oh, did I just pull a dummy move? Yep, I pulled a dummy move. I had it in the temperature, not the fan speed. So that's that. This will top the fan at 60% of its maximum RPM. And from here, what I would just like to do is kind of make this linear. So I'll pull this down. This is really going to be the same kind of whether you're kind of drag this. Just kind of, this really doesn't need to be that exact. I just like it to be kind of a line, just so it's a little bit more progressive. If you really like torque this up, so if you have it jump up to here, up to 60% that low, it's going to just really whine and ramp up a lot. So that's kind of annoying. With this, I mean, I'm really getting good temperatures without having to mess with this all too much. So I'm going to, we'll call that good enough. Save that. Got a nice line, topping out at 60%, so this shouldn't be crazy loud. And because I'm also picky about noise, about volume level, so that's another fun thing, is I'm just super particular about how this stuff is set up. So I know that this voltage works, 1090 millivolts. This is what I was running for a small overclock. So I know that this will run, because I think I had, my max frequency was like 2755 or something like that. Something in that range. So if I have a lower max frequency and the same millivolts or voltage, then I know that it's going to run fine. It's when you start, really the biggest place that you introduce instability and problems with getting crashes and stuff like that is when you start talking about reducing voltage. If you're getting crashes and stuff and you've increased the clock speed, it's probably because you need to increase the voltage. So that's kind of why when you launch this in manual, it will max out the voltage. It's kind of smart to just have it be at max because a lot of people are going to want to do overclocking rather than undervolting. But in my scenario, we're just going to go the other direction. So I'm going to pop this at, find it easier to just type this stuff out. 1090. Good stuff. And let's go ahead and see how this runs. I actually did do a Unigine superposition benchmark beforehand, and my goal is basically to have the same performance, but just have a lower temperature overall. Lovely, I'm getting work emails. Let me grab that picture. So I think it was, I'm not going to speak before I know. Okay, so it's I got a score of 9131. So we're going to try and aim that around the same spot. I'd like not to lose performance. Maybe I would say I'd be okay with losing 50 points. So that would put me at 90 80. It would be what that would leave me at from 9131. So let's see how it goes. And then I should have this little taskbar. Stream might get a little bit wonky when I start the benchmark because obviously it's going to be really pushing the graphics card hard. But when I was testing before, it wasn't much of an issue. I'm going to put this in 1080p high. And let's give it a quick run. I should have my metrics up here. There we go. Cool. I think that I topped out at like 62C. So I'm going to keep an eye on this number up here. This is my GPU current temperature. A lot of people get confused when it comes to... I was not expecting that music. When it comes to current temperature versus junction temperature. Junction temperature... Some people will yell at me for this, but junction temperature you can basically ignore. What that has to do with is the hottest part of the graphics card, the actual chip. It's not really a problem if that number gets super high. Like that can be 90C, and that's not going to be a problem. The biggest thing that impacts how high that number is or how big of a difference there is between your current temperature and the junction temperature is actually the graphics card design. The actual mounting plate is what helps keep the kind of heat dissipation within a lower range. So a bad card might have a larger discrepancy. Mine has a pretty big discrepancy. I did apply new thermal paste, so that could be part of it. Just isn't seated 100% correctly, but is it causing any loss of performance or any problems? No, it's going to be totally fine. Currently sitting at 57C, so that's not bad. We're almost halfway through, so that bodes well. And something that's kind of nice to know is that when you're running benchmarks like this, your temperature will generally, you can kind of see it's flickering from 57, it's going up to 58 occasionally. It will kind of slowly, it'll jump up a lot. It'll go from maybe like 45 C, and it'll jump up to 50, 55, do that pretty quick. And then it'll kind of slowly start to approach a higher temperature. And then generally, your temperature will just kind of sit at the same place. So if I were to run this, let's say that this was going to get up to 60 C. If I ran this for 30 minutes or if I ran it for 8 hours, it's probably going to stay around that temperature. That's just kind of where things end up settling out with the cooling that you have in the system. All else being equal, you don't have somebody pumping AC in the room or anything like that. It's going to kind of top out around that temperature. I think we're probably going to get up to maybe 59, maybe 60. It would be a slight temperature reduction, but we'll see how we do. And my fan is at 2,500 RPM. I can barely hear it, and I'm wearing open backs, so that's a good thing. This is the last scene. We're at 59. 59. I'll call it 59. It's kind of teetering between 59 and 58. And what do we got? 96.55. All right. Well, there you go, ladies and gentlemen. That is for those of you, if you didn't hear what I said earlier, my previous score, so I did this with just the completely stock settings. I just went into default settings on the graphics card, and the performance that I got with that was a 9131. I'm gonna show you. This is gonna look like crap, but just so you can kind of see, same settings, and 9131. So I gained 500 points by undervolting. So I'm actually using less voltage than the stock parameters. What's probably happened here is the two biggest gains that we're probably seeing is because of increasing the power limit. So I'm allowing the GPU to use more power when it needs it. So that's a really big thing. That alone can increase performance quite a bit, and you don't even have to touch the voltage, the frequency, the other stuff. So that's really nice. The other thing is doing a overclock of the VRAM. Because I was able to push that up, that allowed me to get higher performance as well. Where did my Radeon? There we go. So we'll just go in here and show you. So having this VRAM up to 1900 from like 1750, that's a big part of the performance. And then the power tuning. Those are pretty much the only two things that I did that would have positively improved performance. So that's really, really cool. And here is where the fun begins, so to speak, which is a lot of trial and error. So if I want to really kind of fine tune this, we went up to 59 C, which is totally good. Those are really, really good temperatures. If you're gaming, if you're in a benchmark, that's a great temperature to be at. Kind of, I would say like where I would be comfortable would probably be like low 70s is still solid. You wouldn't want to exceed like 75 C on your GPU current temperature, but lower is better. If you can get like the same performance and keep your temperature lower, then that's awesome, and your graphics card will probably last longer. So now what I'm going to go in and do here is pop this down to, I'm going to get a little ambitious here. I'm going to go down to 1070. So we were at 1090 and we're reducing to 1070. Now, in order to kind of test this more quickly, we know what my performance was at. So really, I'm trying to test stability. And what I'm going to do to test stability, I'm moving a little fast for you here, actually. So I just reduced this from 1090 to 1070. And I'm going to go up here to stress test. Now, stress test is a built-in feature that the Radeon software has built in. And this is actually a really good tool. This will be super awesome for detecting if you're going to have a crash or stuff like that. Now, 2 minutes is a little bit short for this. I'm going to probably just boost this up maybe to 150. Sure, why not? 150 seconds. That's what that is. And this will show me my temperatures and everything in real time. So I'll be able to see if I'm getting much of a difference with minus 20 millivolts. And we'll be able to see if I crash. And while I'm waiting, I'm going to go ahead and crack open a beer, because this could take some time. The stream is, I'm noticing right now, it's super jittery. So I'm sorry about that. This will stop once the benchmark's done. But hopefully my audio should be coming through just fine. I don't think there should be an issue with that. Let's see here. So we're getting up to 58. Small reduction. Could very well get up. Yeah, it's 59. Just like I was saying, this will it'll slowly creep up. It might look like it's going to stay at one number. It's going down a little bit. Sometimes you'll see these little drop-offs where the frequency drops or the power consumption drops. That's normal. As long as it's not like fully crashing out, that'll, when it does crash out, which I'll force a crash just so you can kind of see what that looks like. It's not that scary. It's not really that difficult to work with. It's just part of the process, really, especially if you're trying to really push the limits of, what kind of performance you're getting, for overclocking. I just totally had a brain fart there. So for overclocking, you're definitely going to experience crashes. And if you really want to have like really, really low voltage, low temperatures on your card, then you're going to have the same thing. Both extremes are going to be just as kind of as difficult to achieve. And then this should just have another 30 seconds, I believe. And then we should get back to a smooth streaming experience as opposed to like 2 FPS here. So sorry about that. The funny thing is, this tool really pushes your graphics card hard, which is great for doing stability testing. The problem is it totally eats up all your resources, so the streaming quality is bad right now. But if you're, benchmarks are also a very reliable way to check. All right, cool. That was totally fine. Finish that up. And I'll also kind of let this cool down here. I didn't even pay attention to what my temperature was. I should have been doing that. But I think we got up to, I think it was probably 58. That would be my guess. I didn't keep a close eye on that, so not totally reliable. Let's go back in here. So since I know that this is stable from doing that stress test, we can go back in here and run another benchmark and see how we do. I'm also going to, I'm going to cancel this real quick. This should cancel. It takes a second to load in. Escape is to cancel, so it might just not be fully loaded in. There we go. Okay. I'm going to do hardware monitor. This will be, should have launched this earlier. Yeah, right. I'm not going to, do I have to update? Ugh, I hate that stuff's like this now. I don't want to do this. I just want hardware monitor. Let's see. There we go. Cool. You can just close it and then it works. All right, so this is going to do a lot of information here. What this is basically going to do is it starts logging when I open it, so it'll say current value, minimum, maximum. So if I just keep this open while I'm running a benchmark, then I can tell, what the maximum temperature is. So that'll be handy, and I won't have to keep a super close eye on it. And I'm going to still leave this pinned up here. But this tool is just called hardware monitor. Free tool, handy, nice to have if you're curious about temperatures. Especially if you just did an overclock or an undervolt or whatever, and you want to just go play games and see how it does with a prolonged workflow, then it's nice to have. And just going to let this run. This is going to take a minute. So I'm going to go through and read some chat questions that I've had on some previous videos here. I think I feel like such a boomer when I'm trying to do this on stream. Let's see. Had somebody, looks like Exoskelly, said that they successfully I keep looking over here. I got my work webcams here, and then my stream for this one's here, which is why I keep getting tripped up. But Exoskelly said he was able to overclock his 6600, his Sapphire Pulse. So congratulations, Exoskelly. Just did kind of a slight change, 100 plus on the min side and 1050 or 1090 millivolts. Good stuff. Love to see it. I'm glad that a couple people, it seems, have actually gone through and tried this. Didn't have too many issues, so that's awesome. A lot of people are afraid to do overclocking, undervolting stuff because they're super scared about it. Oh, did I cancel that? Oh no, I canceled it. I swear, if you touch anything with these. Actually, you know what's the smarter way to do this? I'm going to just launch this windowed, I think. This is going real smooth. I swear, if you ever have like too much self-confidence, just do a live stream and then take you down a couple pegs. Stuff that never normally goes wrong just becomes an immediate problem. Let's see. I think this might not be an issue, or it might be it's not an option to do not in full screen. So that's neat. Yeah, don't really have any settings there. So here it is. I just won't touch anything. Hopefully we don't have any problems. And let's see what else we got here. We had one person. Is it Luca Gillick? I hope I'm saying that right. Asked, does Radeon software need to be running for the settings to work? Like, do you have to, like, do I have to set it to start up with my PC or something, or do you just save the profile like you showed and then you can close the Radeon software? This is a good question. I think, you know, easy to misunderstand this. So what he's talking about is the tool that we've been using here, the Radeon software that we've actually been using to dial in the clock speeds and VRAM and all that sort of stuff, the fan speeds. Excuse me. All that. Do you have to launch that and enable it when you start up the PC or before you start a game or stuff like that? The answer is no. So those settings will stay once you've actually saved them in the software. Those settings will stay as you last had them, unless you crash. So if you do have a crash for whatever reason, if the setting's not stable, then your Radeon software will default. It will reset itself to default settings. So that's what a crash is. That's what it's supposed to do. Is it's going, oh, something's not working quite right. Let me go ahead and crash this out, and we'll just reload the factory default settings. That's what's going on there. But yeah, you don't have to. Once you're done with undervolting, overclocking, whatever. Once you save those settings, I do recommend saving a copy just in case you do have a crash, because there otherwise won't be a save file. But yeah, you don't really have to touch it ever again if you don't want to. So, just an FYI there. Get some water. I'm talking so much. It's a hot day. Like, barely gone outside today. Let's see, what else do we got? Someone said, which brand is this? Do you know something about the MSI RX 6600? I'm using an XFX, a Swift SWFT 210 model. Yeah, and I think that was in regards to, I was talking about the power limit slider. Mine will go up to plus 20%. Based on the graphics card that you have, it will be a different number. So if it's a cheaper card, it might only go up to like plus 10%. If you have a nicer card, it might go up to like 25. I don't know of any that go to 30 off the top of my head, at least. But yeah, that's kind of just where that comes from. All right, so we got to 58C. That's good. Dropped a little bit of temperature there, and then we got 9628. I think that is about the same performance we were getting last time. It's kind of within margin of error. Sometimes you run tests like this, and you might get like 10 higher, 10 lower, 20, 30 higher, that kind of stuff. I mean, it doesn't really matter all that much. It could be all sorts of different stuff, especially because I'm streaming right now. I'm not going to say, oh no, I lost performance or I gained performance or whatever. I know that from the values I'm tweaking, it shouldn't really be substantial. If this went down to like 9,500, then there's probably something going on where things aren't working quite right. But just a small difference like that, you really don't have to worry about all that much. Okay. At this point, since I know that this is all working, what I would go ahead and do personally is save this. So what I like to do, I'll go ahead and show this more slowly. Up here, you can see save profile. So I'm going to save this to desktop, and I'm just going to call this undervolt test. Or I'll just call it actually undervolt, and I'll kind of use this file again. So now this is saved. So if my computer were to crash for whatever reason, I still have that file saved. And now I can go in, and since I know that this is working, I ran like a 2.5 minute stress test on Radeon, and then I did a benchmark with Unigen, so I know that things are working just fine. Now from here, I'm just trying to kind of push the limits a little bit further and see what kind of how much further I can push it, basically. Let's see here. I'm like such a boomer with YouTube live streaming, but I think that's just the view that I'm going to keep it at. Probably fine. Yeah. Okay, so we're at 1070 here, and the safest thing to do, the less heading inducing thing to do, is just to reduce this by like 10. So I could bring this down to like 1060. I'm guessing I'm kind of getting close to the limit of how low I can push the voltage. So I don't want to, like earlier what I did was I had it at 1090 and then I brought it down to 1070, and I was like, okay, let's see if this works. It worked fine. So I reduced it by 20. But now I'm going to reduce it by 10 and just make sure that everything is solid so that I don't have issues. I'm going to start off by stress testing it here. And there's not really a shortcut to this. Like, really, if you want to make sure that stuff is stable and you're not going to have, like, be playing a game and then all of a sudden you start crashing out of nowhere, if you want to make sure that things are going to work and be solid, then you just want to do a lot of testing, and you want to make small changes and just make sure that things are working fine. So I'm going to run a 2-minute stress test here, and this is going to get choppy. So better to just watch the numbers. I don't know why I thought that would be a good idea. But yeah, so, and I think we had a small, we lost like a degree in temperature. So not a ton, not really a ton. If you want to get your card to run like super, like at the lowest temperature possible, honestly, you're better off going with a better cooling solution. I'm going to touch on this later, actually. I'd like to get into that point as well. It's useful for whether you're undervolting or overclocking. Having just better cooling for your PC in general is really awesome. It'll also generally be quieter and all sorts of stuff like that. It's just a really good thing to invest in. Pretty worthwhile. But if you just want to spend $0, or if your GPU is just burning through electricity like nobody's business, then it's nice to know how to do this stuff, and you're able to tweak those dials and figure stuff out. Especially if you're already doing overclocking, you can have profiles for when you want overclocking, when you want undervolting, etc. Like if you're just using your computer normally, like just browsing the web, you could just run an undervolt setup with quiet fans, and that'll be great. Then you want to throw on your headphones and go gamer mode for like 8 hours or whatever you people do. You can have your other setting for that. But yeah, personally, when I'm using my computer, just not playing a game, I hate hearing the fans. I hate it. Super annoying to me. I'm just like super. We got up to 60 degrees, 61 for just a moment. But yeah, I'm like really sensitive to auditory, whatever you call it. Just sounds annoying. I'm also curious here about reducing this power limit a little bit. So I'm sort of hitting a wall in terms of lowering temperatures. I'm curious if I bring this back by like 5%, if that is going to help reduce temperatures a little bit and not affect performance. So I'm curious. I haven't really tweaked that before. I know it runs fine at full, but so we have 9628 to beat. Let's go ahead and run this again. And here's where I'm going to be looking for like a big difference in performance. So, and I will keep. So we're at maximum temperature. I'll just have my hardware info pulled up, and we can do clear min max. So this will allow me to see how hot it actually gets on this specific benchmark. And we're gonna hit bada bing. And funny enough, the regular benchmark, this Unigine superposition, doesn't seem to really kill my my stream quality. It's just that Radeon stress test. So whatever they're doing with that, I think it's a really well designed tool. It beats the crap out of your system. Well, if there's a problem, it will find it, and it will crash. Let's see. Looking for some other comments here. I think that's about kind of the ones that I want to answer from that video. Let's see. Let's check. Somebody asked Zaid. I'm just gonna call you Zaid. I can't pronounce this last name. Is it worth getting the 6600 VR? I have a 1650 Super at the moment, and I've been planning on getting a Quest 2 soon. So I thought I'd also get a GPU capable of playing PC VR. Could I play stuff like Skyrim VR, Blade and Sorcery, Half-Life Alyx, Asgard's Wrath, etc. Don't mind turning my settings down to medium or something for demanding games, but I really want to get into PC VR. Yeah. So the 6600, and we're talking the non-XT. By the way, I had another question about that. I don't have the XT. I just have the regular RX 6600. Totally capable of VR. It's not going to be maxing out, for a Quest 2, which has a reasonably high resolution. It has a 92, is it 90 hertz? I gotta fact check myself. I think it's a 90 hertz display. You're not going to be maxing that out, like max settings, on a lot of games. but also you really don't need to. Like, just like with any game, you don't need to be playing at max settings, and at like mid to high settings, depending on the game, depending on your headset, you're going to be totally fine with this card. I did mention in my video on this card with the 6600 VR video that it's worth spending a little bit more. It's worth getting a 6600 XT if you specifically know that you want to do a lot of PC VR. There's no getting around it. Like, VR is taxing. It's difficult. There's a lot of rendering. It's a lot harder. Playing it at low resolution isn't really, even like talking low resolution, like 1080p, that's super not fun on VR. Getting 60 FPS in VR is not super fun. Like, some people can deal with it, but it's not ideal. Let's see, 9650. I think that we lost a little bit of performance, but not too much. That's interesting. And then what did my temperature get up to? This is really anticlimactic. 58. Okay. So we're kind of sticking around that 58C number. So that's pretty solid. I've lost about 4 degrees Celsius in terms of temperature. Everything looks really stable. My maximum power that I pulled was 106 watts. That's pretty solid. I'd say that's pretty solid performance. Pretty happy with those numbers. I don't know if I really feel like pushing it much more. And yeah, so you were here. I mean, I just started from square one in terms of going from totally stock settings to undervolting this. So that's cool. Back to the point I was on though. So for PC VR, yeah, this is a great, like, if you're into gaming, but you're not trying to max out games, this is a really good card to have, and it is pretty low on power consumption, which is just nice. You're not using a bunch of extra power, you're not generating a ton of extra heat, which is good. It's just kind of easier to build a PC around that. And yeah, so it's a really good card. And it will totally do, VR gaming. I was playing Boneworks maxed out settings, and it was running like really, really well. I was going way over the frame rate cap on that headset quite a bit. But at worst, I think I was dipping down into, like 40 FPS, which is not great, but that was the most difficult to run part of the game. And I would say that's totally playable, and especially if you're willing to turn on your settings a little bit. Yeah, I mean, if you're an enthusiast, then, spend enthusiast money, but you don't really need to, especially to have fun. For all of the like desktop games I play, I mean, I play quite a bit of CSGO, which you can run on a toaster. I play, Rainbow Six Siege. I don't play a lot of graphically intense games, but Forza is one of them. I've played some Rust, and those have both run super well on this system. And I do have another question about my CPU. I have a 3600X. So it's which is right there. It's literally right there. But that's what I'm using for that. These days, pretty like, middle of the road processor. It was never like a king, but it was a kind of a budget champion. The X is Gamers Nexus railed against the 3600X. Kind of just came with a better fan. There is like a slight, base clock increase. I think it is like it's a slightly higher performance. It was like a little bit more expensive and a little bit more performance. But whatever. It's pretty much a 3600 non-X, in the real world. But yeah. Well, I hope that this was useful. Just thought it'd be fun to hop on and do a live stream. So hopefully this is a little bit more context for you guys. little bit better understanding of what's actually going on with the overclock and undervolting stuff. Hopefully this demystified some stuff for you. But with all that said, I am No BS, and I will see you guys soon. Bye.